Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this month's Instant Insight webinar. Today we have Patrick Payette and Jonathan Sides joining us to take a deep dive into Microsoft Cloud PBX. And just to kick things off before I hand it over to my presenters, we are going to launch a poll just to see where you stand in the clouds. So watch for that pop up shortly.
Thanks, guys. Good morning, everybody. Appreciate you taking the time out of the day. It's crazy. I'm looking at this. Bruce Springsteen couldn't sell at Madison Square Gardens and feel happier than I do right now. Hundreds, almost thousands of people taking time out of the day to listen to me. It's fantastic. Thanks for joining. I'm Patrick Payette. I'm joined by Jonathan Sides back there, making sure that I stay on the line and I say the right things. Today we're going to be talking about Cloud PBX with Office 365, how Arrow deploys it, the framework that we use to do that, maybe answer some questions, uncover some hidden truths, some hidden falses, and everything else in between. So I'm advancing my slides. Jonathan, since you're on and I know I can hear you, you can see my slides advancing, correct?
I can indeed, yes.
I appreciate everything that you've done up to this point. So here's our agenda for today. I'll give you guys a brief intro into Arrow SI. I'm not going to talk about it for more than, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes at the most. And then I'll give an overview of Cloud PBX, kind of talk about what it can and can't do, where it fits in the market, why people are doing it, maybe some of the requirements around that, and then how we deploy, how we integrate, how we follow the framework that's set out to ensure success. So very briefly, Arrow Electronics, if you don't know, is Fortune 119. We're kind of a big deal. We partner with everybody from Microsoft and Avaya to Dell HP to Fortinet and Nutanix, and the list goes on and on of partners, but today we're focused primarily on our Microsoft relationship. As you can see from the slide, we've got our fingers in a lot of pies. From our Global Components division, this is the part of Arrow that you touch just about every day of your life because our electronics components are in just about everything. We partner with Microsoft on some IoT devices, some embedded circuit boards, and our components go into quite a few Microsoft products as well. I don't want to talk about every single one of these, but I do want to point out Value Recovery because it is one of my favorites. Value Recovery is a part of Arrow that does green IT asset disposal and refurbishment. So when you walk around a big campus building, you see those cardboard boxes full of tech that's going to get thrown away. That's stuff that comes to Arrow in a lot of cases, and we refurbish it, repurpose it, securely wipe it, and reintroduce it into the market as new. Well, not new, sorry, gently used. So that's what Value Recovery does. And then specifically, Jonathan and I work as part of the Systems Integration division. So Arrow SI is a Gold Cloud Productivity partner for Microsoft, a Gold Communications partner for Microsoft. We're a launch partner for Skype for Business. We were a launch partner for Lync, for Surface Hub. We're an authorized seller of Surface devices. Just about you name it, except for Dynamics. That falls under a different division of Arrow called ECS. That's my 30-minute slide on that one. So specifically Arrow SI, this is I call it, here's why we're the best. And here's why we're the best. We're Gold Communications, Gold Cloud Productivity, Gold Distribution, Silver Intelligent Systems. I mean, the long story short is Arrow SI works with Skype for Business, Exchange, SharePoint, Azure AD, PBX integration, voice messaging, EMS. I'm trying to think of all the other parts of Office 365. Advanced threat protection, EMS, RMS. I'm missing a bunch, Jonathan. If I'm missing anything, jump in. But that's my quick here's why we're the best slide. So I think at this point it might be good to that's my 30 minutes, by the way. If we want to take a look back at that poll, Kelly, can we pull that back up? I think that's where we're at. So I think everybody can see the results now, and you can see it's kind of a pretty even split of 20, 30, 20, and 30 across the board. Jonathan, can you see that as well?
I can as well, and it seems to match with a lot of the different conversations that we've had with our clients, is that some have proverbially dipped their toe in the water in terms of migrating, for example, some of their messaging platforms to the cloud, but some of the other services that we're going to be talking about later on in this presentation, I think that that's still up in the air about what they're going to do in the near term. So again, and I don't know whether you want to go over it in any particular detail, Patrick, but I think this also maps what we do internally as well, because we still have a number of components that have on-premise deployments, as well as we have a hybrid infrastructure that uses some of the cloud PBX services that you described earlier.
Yeah, and I think it really, like you said, depends on the workload, right? I think a lot of organizations, the first couple of things they want to migrate to the cloud are things like email and predominantly SharePoint, right? SharePoint's a beast, and it's really hard to take care of it and feed it, and moving that workload up makes a lot of sense. So I think in a lot of cases, yeah, there is a split, right? You're going to keep your big iron PBX or whatever PBX on-prem, you're going to use voice on-prem, and you're going to migrate the other stuff to the cloud. So I think it makes a lot of sense. All right, Kelly, you can throw it back to me. We can keep those results in case anybody wants to look at them later. And confirm for me, Jonathan, please, that you're looking at my Cloud PBX overview.
Yes, we are. Yep.
You're the best. All right, so a quick rundown of Cloud PBX. And when I say Cloud PBX, I'm specifically referring to the offering from Microsoft. I think it's officially called Microsoft, Skype for Business, Cloud PBX, or Cloud PBX in Office 365. So as an overview of what Cloud PBX is, we have to look at Office 365. So Office 365 has been around for many years now and has really changed the way people look at deploying their Office apps. So Office 365 obviously includes, depending on your entitlements, your Office suite of products like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, OneNote, which is becoming increasingly popular, to the back-end applications of Exchange for email, SharePoint for intranet site and content sharing. That goes hand in hand with OneDrive that I see more and more customers using OneDrive. Yammer, which is the corporate social, you can call it corporate social networking, that's now going to be, I believe, augmented by the acquisition of LinkedIn. Power BI for big data analytics, Office Delve for worker analytics. If you haven't looked at Delve, it's very cool. You should check it out. And then obviously the Skype for Business workload, which used to be Link, which used to be OCS. And specifically when we talk about Cloud PBX, I'm not talking about a new application that's going in here and I'll have a new box and it'll be called Cloud PBX. It's specifically a workload augmented in Skype for Business. So when I talk about Skype for Business and Cloud PBX, I'm assuming that you're going to be or have been in the cloud, or you have deployed Office 365. You kind of know how it works, because I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about how to stand all of this up. So if you look at the offerings from Microsoft, and this is the E Suite, the Enterprise Suite. If you're in SLG, if you're in state local government, if you're in higher ed, you might have a different plan than this. I do know higher ed specifically has equivalent plans. They're not called E1, E3, and E4. And same thing for government. There are different government SKUs which have different pricing and different entitlements. But as an enterprise customer, you can look at this and say, okay, these are my 3 SKUs to choose from when picking Office 365, right? E1's kind of the intro. You get your Office apps, you can get email in the cloud. There's not a lot of horsepower behind that, but it's meant to get you in the cloud and get you started. E3 is what I see most enterprise customers using. That allows you to migrate your email workload to the cloud, your SharePoint workload. It gives you entitlements to just about everything under the sun, apart from voice. And I'll talk about that in a moment. And then E5 is the granddaddy of them all that includes everything. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, of course, Exchange, SharePoint, Yammer, Advanced Threat Protection, which is machine learning for capturing and collecting data about email spam and email attacks. Power BI for business analytics, Delve organizational analytics. The list goes on and on. But what E5 also includes is Cloud PBX, so the voice entitlement, and the ability to use PSTN conferencing in the cloud as part of this. So when you're looking at E5, you're taking a big step into the cloud direction. Jonathan, anything that you want to add there? Are you seeing customers do the same thing, lots of E3s and add-ons on top of that, or what?
Yeah, I think that right now people are looking at the individual categories of users that they have within their organizations, and then they make a distinct buying decision based on what specific support they want to provide. You know, whether you're an IW, an intelligent worker, or you're a mobile client or a mobile user, that gives you the option of a lot more flexibility by moving to the cloud. And so again, it allows them to offset some of the infrastructure that they have in place today and also provide services that are a little more agile and mobile to a specific class of user within their enterprise.
Which is a good point that I didn't mention before, is yeah, you can blend these, right? You don't have to go all in on one or the other. For instance, here at RSI, we've got a blend, right? I've got some users that don't need anything but Office, so they're getting E1s. So we have a mixture of E1s, E3s, and E5s, and then you can buy kind of bolt-ons or add-ons to go with those if you need them. One cool one that I didn't point out is Office 365 videos. Never looked at that. It's like your own YouTube for your organization, where you can share video content, streaming from Office 365. Pretty neat. So specifically the Cloud PBX workload, this is kind of a why are people doing this? And what I want to show you and further on is the ease of use of it, the features that you get, the roadmap for it, and the architecture, and how you deploy. But if the way I see this happening quite a bit is, you got the IT guy who gets the directive from up on high, hey, we've got this entitlement, go figure out how to make it work. So usually by the time it gets to our level, the engineering level, it's like the decision's already been made, and it wasn't a technology decision. It was either a business use case decision, a financial decision, or a CIO read it in a magazine and said, I want that, and now you've got to go deliver it. But specifically, if you go look at on paper the use cases for this, the first place you get ROI, typically your return, is on conferencing. Time and time again, week after week, I've got customers telling me, I'm sick and tired of paying ABC company thousands of dollars per month to talk on the phone. We can do that in-house. We can do that in the cloud for cheaper. It's old. I don't like it. It's a separate work stream. So getting rid of that monthly expense, by the way, increases month over month and year over year, is an easy way to see ROI. In the PBX space, and when I say PBX, I kind of mean big iron. I'm even thinking back to things like CS2100s. That's a really big iron. I mean, that thing's got an air filter, an oil filter, and a gas can next to it in case it goes down. When we talk about replacing something like that, a PBX replacement is not cheap, and it's not easy, and it's not fast. And that's where a lot of people see Cloud PBX or a solution like that as an option. It's fairly easy to stand up, and I'll talk about feature parity in a moment. And you can read the rest, but the last bullet there that says reducing CapEx and moving to an OpEx model plays well with a lot of the financials at an organization. The old adage is, why am I paying $1 million for voicemail? When I could be moving that to an OpEx model that more closely follows my revenue stream and how we do business internally. So instead of paying a bunch of money up front, you pay over time on a per user basis, on a consumption basis. So that's kind of why people are even considering doing something like this, and this is how you do the deployment of this. So as I said, Cloud PBX is a workload of Skype for Business. I think it's something like upwards of 90% of Fortune 500s are using Skype for Business in some way, shape, or form. And you can deploy that in three ways, one of three ways. Entirely online, so I've got no servers on-prem, no infrastructure on-prem. The only thing on-prem are my users and their devices. I can do it in a hybrid model where I've got some users in the cloud, some on-prem. That plays well with a lot of organizations that may have some compliance requirements or have some high-touch users that they just don't want to move to the cloud, or there's a number of reasons why you would do that. And then you can also deploy it entirely on-premise, meaning I'm standing up my servers, I'm carrying and feeding for it. If it goes down, I've got to fix it. And these are ways that we're seeing a lot of customers do it, all three of these. But specifically, if we're talking about Cloud PBX, I assume that your users and your environment is in the cloud. We don't have servers on-prem. And with that, your PSTN services for your PBX are not necessarily yours. They don't have to be. If you've got trunks, you can use them. But for a new organization or 100 knowledge workers, you don't have to, terminate trunks to get that working. It's just part of the service. And this is kind of explaining what I mean by that. So I've got my users on-prem. I've got their devices and their phones on-prem. All of my workload is in the cloud. I don't have any servers on-prem. And then option one there is, yeah, I'm getting to the PSTN through Microsoft. And people ask, well, who's providing that trunk? Who's the carrier? The answer I typically get is, it doesn't matter. What do you care? You're not paying them. You don't have a contract with them. You don't pay their fees, and you don't have to have your lawyers involved typically. It's just part of your service. You pick up your phone, you dial a number, it goes. Alternatively, number two is if you really do have your own trunks on-prem, and you've got say a contract with a carrier that doesn't expire for another 1.5 or 2 years, and you've got it sized the way you want, and you've got a mixture of PRIs and maybe SIP trunks coming in, you can have an instance of a server, of an infrastructure to terminate those trunks. So your users are still in the cloud. When they sign in, they're still going online. But when they place and receive calls, it'll go through your trunks on-prem. You can call that Cloud Connector Edition or on-premises PSTN connectivity. But that's designed for those customers that have that heavy investment in either a PBX on-prem today with trunks, or you're locked into a contract, or you just like your own trunks for some reason. You can do that. And this kind of fleshes that out a bit more. So on top of the subscription for the user, you're thinking, okay, well, if I'm calling the PSTN, there's got to be some charge there, right? There's got to be some mechanism for billing for usage. Otherwise, my users could be on the phone all day, every single one of them, and it'd be the same price, right? Well, in addition to the user entitlement, there is a PSTN calling subscription for Office 365. So if the users are in the cloud, they're signed in, they're using their phones, you have this add-on to say, enable these users to get to the PSTN. And there's a cost for that. And that could be local, long distance, international, what have you. With on-premises PSTN connectivity, that just means my users are online and my trunks are in the cloud. What that also affords you the opportunity to do is potentially do some integration with an existing PBX. That could be anything. That could be an Avaya, Cisco, Mitel, Short. I don't care. It doesn't matter. What that would allow you to do is have calls go across to that PBX, use that PBX's trunking, maybe hit a user over there. It's designed to kind of build that bridge. There's not a lot of robust routing on that cloud connector device there on the bottom. It's just kind of meant there to be a termination point for the Office 365 users. I'd say with that sort of scenario where I've got an existing PBX, it's either a short-term / mid-term strategy for interop, so that it's not like I'm moving users from one boat to another and hoping nothing goes terribly wrong. It's there meant to be an integration point so that we can move at our own pace. So back to the ease of use and why people are using this. I got to tell you, I'm going to show you this in the next couple of slides. It's easy to deploy. In a matter of 3 minutes, you can stand up a user, their Skype account, get them a phone number, assign them a 911 location, and boom, they've got dial tone. No punching down of wires, no placing of phone sets, no TTIing a phone using codes to assign it a station. It's pretty darned easy. With the service, you can also port your own numbers. So if you've got numbers and you've got a DID range that you like, it's an FCC thing, right? You can port numbers. So you can port all of your existing numbers up, or some of them, and what have you. And then the solution itself is E911 compliant. So that's typically said just to cross it off the list, right? What about 911? It works. And the location-based routing on that is based in the cloud as well. And then, as I said, you can dial local long distance to phone. You can dial numbers. So kind of the roadmap of where we are, who this is designed for, and some of the features you get and will be getting. I don't want to go through every single one, but I will say, Cloud PBX, I've been running it personally for well over a year. I know Jonathan has as well. And for us, as a knowledge worker, where I spend my day on the phone, and Jonathan does as well, does exactly what it's supposed to do. You dial the phone number in my email signature on my business card, it's ringing my phone. In fact, my previous phone number that I had on my PBX that I had for about 10 years, I have that simultaneously ringing my Cloud PBX number. So for me, as an end user talking to customers, I'm not losing those calls, right? They're still going to use my old number if they want. It's just going to ring up here. And the goal with Cloud PBX is to cover the entire organization. So this includes things like auto attendance, call response groups or hunt groups or ACDs, boss admin features, supporting common area phones. I will say that's from a PBX point of view, the notion of digital and analog doesn't exist here. This is SIP, this is IP. I'm not standing up gateways and punching down wires. This is all SIP. There's no digital or analog involved. So what does this look like to the end user? Well, from the client's perspective, it's Skype for Business. It's Skype for Business 2015 or 2016. It runs on your PC, on your Mac, on your smartphone. I've got mine running on iOS. I used to have a Windows phone. Oh, I still do. I just don't use it. But just about any smartphone you can run this on. And yeah, when people call the number in my email signature, it rings on my smartphone, right, using my Skype client. So the notion of missing a call doesn't exist here anymore. And then you've got the users that absolutely must have, do, want, and will not say take no for an answer, need a phone. Well, the good news there is Polycom, which can be arguably described as one of the gold standards of IP phones, is just about fully qualified to work here. So the entire VVX line, I believe, is qualified to work. The CX600 is qualified to work. The new Polycom Trio 8800 for conference rooms is qualified. And a handful of others, and they're online. I've called out a few of them here. One of the photos there in the middle, that's actually an Audio Codes phone. It's not officially on the list yet, and I actually have an Audio Codes 440 HD, and it does work. It works. It's working. I know they're working on qualification, as is an organization called Yealink, their phones. So the point here is you've got the option of phones. People want phones, you can get a phone.
Hey, Patrick?
Go ahead, Jonathan.
There was a question that came up regarding common area phones and how they're deployed today in Cloud PBX. Do you know any specifics about that?
When it's coming or how it works?
I'm not sure it's supported yet today. Do you?
Today, right now, if I logged in to do it, no. It's expected, I want to say before the end of the year. I don't know the exact date. I mean, the thing with common area phones is it's not a full user, right? When you build a user account for Skype or Exchange, like Jonathan Sides, you've got an email address, you've got an AD account, and you're using licenses for all these things, right? Well, you don't want to do that for a common area phone. It's going to sit there unused 90% of the time in the lobby. So they're working on a way of getting that configuration working so it doesn't pull licenses. That's the real struggle. So it is forthcoming. And then on the support of common area phones, yeah, you can use a VVX 201 is a nice, cost-efficient common area phone.
Okay, thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, Jonathan. So that's kind of a rundown of what it is, how it works. I want to look real quick at some of the requirements. People are thinking, okay, I know how to stand up a traditional PBX, and I know how to administer stations and trunks. What do I need to do before I even get started? And it's pretty straightforward. Obviously, you need Office 365. If the organization hasn't migrated any workload or done much with it, I'd say Cloud PBX it needs to be kind of behind that initiative. And by that I mean, users either in the cloud for email, AD integration using ADFS, using Azure AD Connect to integrate the directory so when you go online you can see your users. And then your licensing. And this is when I pause and say I am not a lawyer, I just play one on TV. And I don't have control over any organization's licensing, their agreements, their entitlements. This is my, I can say, opinion of how this licensing works. So if you're an existing enterprise customer with Office 365 and you have an E1 or an E3, you can jump to E5 and get this. You can also just buy add-ons. So if you don't want to take the huge leap of going to E5, you can buy specifically the add-on for Cloud PBX. If PSTN conferencing in the cloud is the real thing that we care about, you can buy that add-on specifically as well. Obviously, you can go straight to E5 and get everything under the sun. And then if you're going to be placing calls to the PSTN, you need a calling plan. Local, long distance, international. The rates and availability and all of that is online, and I can share that later if we really want to. And then as I called out, non-enterprise customers, meaning higher ed, SLG, state local government, have their own separate agreements. I believe government still may not have Cloud PBX as an E SKU or G SKU rather, but I know it's forthcoming. Higher ed does. So administratively, what does this look like? Well, this is an Office 365 portal for one of my demo tenants. So you can see, as an admin of the organization, I can come in here and add services, right? So I've already got my subscriptions for E1s, E3s, and E5s. What I've got selected there is my PSTN calling plan. So for domestic calling, for local long distance, which domestic means, I believe it includes Canada. This is how I administer that. I come in and I add it. I didn't have to call anybody. I didn't have to review contracts and T's and C's and SLAs. I just came in here and said, yeah, give me my plan. And there you go. Enabling users. I said it was easy, and I'm going to show you how easy. So this, again, is a demo tenant. This is Patrick Payette. Hey, that's me. Oh, look at this guy. He doesn't even have an Exchange mailbox. He has no licensing. He doesn't have anything going on. I just created him. So what I need to do for every user in Office 365 is assign a license. So when I come in here as an admin, I assign an E5, and you see part of that entitlement is Cloud PBX and PSTN conferencing. When I enable those, my Skype for Business client will have the ability to place and receive calls. I can use a desk phone. I can use a headset. But as I pointed out before, look at everything else that you get. So a lot of people say, man, E5 is the voice SKU. You know, it kind of is. You know, it has the voice entitlement in there. But E5 has so much more to it. And voice is not the primary reason a lot of people are buying E5. People are getting E5 for the advanced threat protection, for e-security and e-discovery, for compliance sake, for EMS, for Power BI. And oh, by the way, yeah, voice is in there too. And that's where a lot of customers will get, and at the IT level, right, the engineering level, we'll get the directive from up on high, hey, we've got this entitlement, go figure it out. In a lot of cases, E5 wasn't purchased because PBX was top of mind. It was purchased because, you know, email's top of mind and security's top of mind, and I want these apps. And hey, we're not using this, go figure it out. And that's where I come in to help. So I've assigned a user, and hey, look, here's my available pool of phone numbers. Well, I don't like any of those, so I'm going to add a new phone number. So as an admin, I come into my admin portal and I say, give me a new number. And I need a good number in the US, in the state of Washington, in the Seattle area code, and actually give me 5 of them. And boom. In a matter of 1, 2, 3, 4 clicks, I've got 5 DID numbers that are now mine. Again, I didn't call anybody. I didn't sign contracts. There's no paperwork involved. This is just part of my subscription. I come in here and I pull phone numbers. So for us, specifically at Arrow, when we onboard a new user, you know, I don't have to go through a whole bunch of rigmarole of who's going to handle AD, who's going to handle Exchange. Well, HR is going to do this. Well, you know, he's based out of the Dallas office, so I got to call the phone guy down in Dallas to do this. No, the person who created the AD account, Exchange account, and is assigning these resources can go in here and assign a phone number. So it makes it part of the admin's work stream, and it makes it pretty easy. So that's a quick view of the admin and how it works. I don't want to do a ton on that. But I do want to speak to implementation. So what often happens is somebody will get that call, right? Hey, we've got this entitlement. Let's go figure out how to deploy it. And in a lot of cases, an admin or, you know, an IT engineer that's like at our level, we'll go in there, flip the switches, turn it on, and assign it to a user, and boom, that's it, right? It's just, you turned it on and you assigned it. And then what you'll find will happen is they'll call and say, hey, it's not working great, or it's not working right. Well, we didn't really plan for that, right? You just kind of turned it on and gave it to a few users. Sometimes that works for a handful, but if we're talking about 50 or 100 or 200 or 500, you've really got to plan for that, and you're about to turn their world a little crazy, right? At some point, they're going to leave to go home on Friday. They're going to come in on Monday, and the phone they've had is going to be different. The UI is going to be different. Their work day is going to change. We're not talking about the voice work stream here. We're changing the entire way people sit at their desks and work, and voice is part of that now. So how do we plan for that? How do you communicate that to your users? So these are what we see as the 4 big reasons to even do this, to even talk about not just the voice workload. This is just migrating any workload, all workload to the cloud. First and foremost, it saves money, particularly when we're talking about things like Exchange and SharePoint, where I'm getting rid of that stuff on-prem. I don't have to have a follow-the-sun IT team that's caring and feeding for it all the time. It frees them up to work on internal projects and other things besides patching and keeping my 170 Exchange servers current and in a support state. I can now focus on actually doing my job. So that's the first bullet. The time save I kind of illustrated, right? From an admin's point of view, it's one place to do everything. I do it in Office 365, and it's one guy that does it, right, or gal. It's not different work streams for voice and email and this and that and the other. The flexibility of it is pretty darn powerful. As a user, since I'm using Office 365, I get updates as they roll out. So there's none of this, let me test it in my lab first, and I've got to have a whole lab environment just to test this before I push it to my end users. That process is already done. It's done as part of your Office 365 workload. Microsoft does that already. And they've got SLAs to back that up. So as updates come out and new features are rolled out, they get pushed to the user. So I don't have to go in there and update my client because IT said so. It does it automatically. And then the security increase is pretty significant as well, because I don't have to keep track of it, right? I don't have to keep track of certificates and NAT addresses and NAT ports and updating the software in the OS. And again, that's all done for you. Jonathan, is there anything that you want to add to this? I know you like this slide, and you've spoken to this one before as well. Anything in here that I might have missed?
No, I think you gave a pretty good explanation of all the different components. And again, each individual's customers' mileage will vary based on what specifically their financial considerations are or their state in terms of their applications that they're looking to migrate. So again, it's an iterative process in terms of just identifying the individual use cases and financial modeling that you'd like to do in order to be able to look at the reasoning for your cloud migration.
And you maybe think of something else there. The decision to do any of this, I've said it before, I'll say it again, is usually not IT driven. It's usually not the technology that's driving it. It's either the financials or the business use case. Again, it gets pushed. You receive the director from up on high. We're going to go do this. Go figure it out. It's typically not the reverse. And again, this is why those conversations might be happening. So specifically with the Cloud PBX and voice workload, a few questions to throw out there to make you think, okay, it looks easy, it is easy, it's fast, it's cheap, it's secure, it's the greatest thing ever. What am I missing? Well, it depends on your environment today and what your users are used to and what they're doing and what your infrastructure looks like. So if I've got a traditional PBX today, maybe it's out of date, maybe it's end of support, end of life. But you know what? I've been building that when it's been running for years on a network or on gateways. And it's been great. Well, I'm about to migrate that workload to the cloud and change the way those voice calls route in my network. So even though I've got components in the cloud, nothing on-prem, my users are still there, and they're still talking to each other, and they're talking to the cloud, and they're all going through either one pipe or two pipe, or how does my MPLS come into play, and Does my ISP and my data provider have options for me to help with that? How do I even start doing that, right? In a lot of cases, everybody says, yeah, the network's the best. I've got the greatest network ever. Everything's going to be fine. Oh, there's an issue. Well, how do I account for that? How do I test the network? This is typically a good time to do a network assessment of some kind. To look and see, okay, where are my weaknesses? Where are my gaps? Voice has been working great. I'm about to change it. So where are those gaps? Where are those bottlenecks? How do I do that? I really like the question of adoption. As engineers and as the IT guys, typically adoption doesn't fall on our plate, right? We're told, go deploy this, make sure it works. If you screw it up, go fix it, that kind of thing. But the decision makers are thinking, okay, well, we're spending all this money. We've got users using Office today. They're using Outlook. They might be using Skype for instant messaging and presence. How are they responding to a change like this? Let's say I give somebody Cloud PBX. Do they know how to use it? Do they know what features they've got? Do they know how to do what they did before with their last phone or something? Do they want headsets? Do they even want telephones? A growing number of customers and users are saying, I don't want a physical desk phone. I'm at my desk half the time. I need a good, robust UC headset that I can take with me on the road. How the heck do you deploy that, right? How do you manage that as an asset? And then lastly, who's qualified to help? The answer's me. I'm qualified to help. Yeah, that's where AeroSI comes in, is to help answer some of these questions. And the deployment framework is a new, well, I wouldn't say it's new, it's a tried and true methodology with a new name called the Skype Operations Framework. And this is a framework that's designed to ensure success. Remember I said in a lot of cases in the IT world, you flip the switches, you give the users the thing, and then you go back to what you were doing. And that, in a lot of cases, has created some problems somewhere in this circle. And following this methodology, which is where we help and we're qualified to do, ensure success all over the place. Not just in the IT deployment, not just in the feature rollout and keeping to a schedule, but making sure that users are getting what they need, be it training, be it phones, be it what have you. How am I going to monitor my network? I'm helping with that. So it's a lot more than just, yeah, stand it up and you're off to the races. It's a decently complex process to get that moving. And the three big steps there are plan, deliver, and operate. So in the planning phase, right, you're doing a lot of data gathering. You're doing a lot of meetings. And it's not always IT stuff, right? It's line of business stuff. And hey, what are you using today on your phone? Oh, wow, you're using long distance codes? I didn't even know we were still doing that. How do I account for something like that? These are things where our knowledge and expertise, and Jonathan and I both have years combined of experience doing voice work and working on PBXs. And we know that ecosystem, right? So that's where we come to help plan that. In the delivery phase, it's about standing up the solution, right? Am I putting out phones? Am I doing a hybrid model? Am I doing trunks on-prem or trunks in the cloud? Am I sizing it correctly? What licenses do I need for these users? All of that. And then operate is, you got the keys to the car. All right, don't crash it. And if you do, give me a call and I'll help.
Hey, Patrick.
Yes, Jonathan.
If I could interject just a couple of points in terms of the Skype Operations Framework, and I think you've touched on a lot of them in terms of one of the things that we've seen in terms of the issues that you run across in terms of network quality. The other one that I think you mentioned in terms of the assessment phase is you're building individual profiles or user case studies, or at least buckets of users that are going. Personas, thank you. That's the Skype Operation Framework term, personas. And so again, what we've seen is that if you dedicate enough time on the upfront planning, it leads to more success on the back end in terms of deployment and user satisfaction. So, and again, one thing that I don't know whether we've mentioned much is that a lot of customers are looking at using some of the cloud services to support things like a new video strategy. So they may have Surface Hubs on premise, they have their Skype for Business Cloud PBX infrastructure in the cloud, and you still have to be aware of how that all works together and the network infrastructure in place to support that. So again, it's an iterative process. You do need, if you spend a lot of time on the upfront work, and if you're looking at the the slide right there in the planning phase where you're doing the envisioning, the assessing of the individual things that you're trying to accomplish within the different use case scenarios and personas, I think ultimately it'll be more successful in the end. And again, adoption drives success as well. So again, you're providing the information that people are going to use in order to be successful, and then ultimately it'll lead to, in the operations perspective, of maintaining what you'd call high quality and reliable infrastructure. So again, if you follow the process, and for some of you that may look like it's a little bit of an overkill, but again, if you can focus on the individual components that are going to help you be successful, then ultimately it'll make the deployment a lot more promising in the long term.
Yeah, and what we mean by personas here is worker types, right? Just flesh it out, right? You've got information workers that are sitting at a desk 99 to 100% of the time, right? They're chained to their desk. If they're at work, they're at their desk, in email, on the phone, using apps. That's one persona. Then you've got other guys that are mobile, right? They're constantly on the move. They may have a desk that they use or not. They may not have a desk. They may be on their cell phone primarily. How do I account for that, right? Then you've got kind of the split, right? Somebody who's a road warrior half the time and chained to a desk the other half. Think sales, right? How do I account for that persona, and what workload are they going to use, and what do they really care about? That's what I mean by personas and planning for that. And then on the adoption side, do my users need training? Do I need to have somebody come in and show them how to use a phone? Do I need to have video content ready so they can learn at their own pace? How am I communicating this, right? These are not IT problems. These are line of business and organizational struggles. And as Jonathan said, adoption drives success, and that only makes you look good, right? Hey, I've got this great new tool. I know how to use it. It's great. I'm telling everybody about it. That ensures success. So I put this up here, and we're very near the end here, but I wanted to just throw up a few more questions of, okay, what else am I missing? Okay, well, phone sets, right? Am I going to have a mix, right? Am I going to have a mixture of Polycoms and maybe some other ones? Can I do anything with my other phones? If I have an old Polycom, can I flash it and image it? What can I do with that? And what am I going to do about headsets and mobile devices, right? Do I have an MDM strategy, mobile device management? Am I pushing clients to my smartphones? Are my users even using Skype today, right? Do they know what that is? Do they know what the IM and presence workload does and all of that? And if we haven't even talked about it, but what about my conference rooms? I've had that Polycom Star phone on that conference room table with a long cable attached to it for years, and it's worked great. Can I continue to do that? Do I do something else? Do I have something like, say, Surface Hub come into the room that enhances that solution, uses Cloud PBX, uses Office 365 and all the apps therein? And then on the adoption side, how am I communicating this, and what feature parity do I need and do I get? Obviously, I want to place a call on hold. Yeah, you can do that. If I want to transfer a call, yeah, you can do that too. I need a boss-admin relationship where I've got a secretary or an assistant that takes care of my calls for me. Yeah, you can do that. The question is, is it going to be the same or a little different, or do I have an equivalent feature, right? And then how do I measure this? How do I measure success? It's not enough to just stand it up, give it to the users. You've got to follow up. You've got to really drive the solution home, and this is true for any solution, not just Cloud PBX. So from an RSI point of view, this is kind of how we approach this and what we bring to the table. And this is true for just about any project that I do that involves Skype, Exchange, SCOM, and SCCM. Any project we do. I always bring a certified PM. You don't want to worry. I don't want to worry. It's their job to worry and to herd the cats, right? You get an architect, somebody who understands this holistically, somebody who knows not just how to turn it on, but the business impacts and the business drivers and the financial impacts, and can really advocate for that and architect the entire solution. A deployment engineer is the guy flipping the switches and turning the wrenches and making sure that it works. They kind of go hand in hand with the architect, right? They both know what they're doing, but the engineer is there specifically as an IT type role. And then as we support and as we operate, I've got a problem, I crash my car. Yeah, we use our 24/7 knock and support engineers to support that. And if we need to escalate to Microsoft, we do that on your behalf. So if you think back to that Skype Operations Framework of plan, deploy, and operate, this follows that, right? The PM and the architect are there to help plan and deploy. the engineer is there to help deploy, and the support is there to help operate. So our deployment model follows that Skype framework. Now there is a program out there, and Jonathan, I might ask you to speak to this more than me, because I know you've had more exposure to this. But Microsoft is driving their customers and their users to use this, and to that end, there are programs out there to help, not just with the planning and the operations framework, and helping me get off the ground with you, but it's there to help potentially financially. Jonathan, can you speak to that?
Yeah, and I think this is, having worked at Microsoft in the past, this is a common program that they launch at the beginning of every fiscal year. So again, it's the amount of money that's available across the different enterprises or EDU or in SLG may vary a little bit, but again, what they're trying to do is they're trying to help their customers go through this migration process. And again, if you look at the poll that we had earlier, it was highly weighted to the fact that 80% of the people that are on this call today are still thinking about doing or migrating some of their applications to the cloud. And what Microsoft's doing here with qualified partners such as us is to just giving you a little bit of seed money in order to be able to get ahead and go to support the migration. And again, one of the things that you do have to do as part of the program is you have to look at some of the Skype Operations Framework documentation and methodology that we've talked about in a little bit of detail today. But again, we're trying to make sure that you're following a standardized process. We're going through an exercise of making sure that you're identifying the persona of people or class of people that might ultimately look to migrate their different applications into the cloud and go from there. And Patrick, if you can just go ahead to the next slide.
Sure.
And again, what it does is it talks about the different categories within the activities and what's the time frame associated with it. And again, if you look at it, they're pretty clear in terms of the different components that they think need to be included to be successful in this type of program. We talked about network readiness in terms of what you have to do in terms of making sure and confirming that your infrastructure is ready to support cloud infrastructure. And again, some of the standard voice pilots and voice deployments have been tried and true for the last 8 to 10 years at Microsoft, so there's existing assets that you can leverage to do that.
Yeah, what I like about that is, there is that pilot program, right? This isn't an all or nothing. I like to call pilots, friends and family of IT. People who are amenable to change, will provide feedback, like new technology and like new stuff, and want to talk about it and use it. So it doesn't have to be everybody, right? We can do a pilot program and migrate the friends and family. And part of that is, yeah, we can do some on-premises connectivity to the existing infrastructure, including the PBX. So this isn't a, shut down your PBX and move it to the cloud type strategy. It's how do I coexist and cooperate that? How do I integrate to that? And what can I do to leverage that sort of pilot? So these are the different types of programs that are part of that Skype Accelerate program. Happy to talk more about it offline, and I know Microsoft has a lot of detail on this, but as a partner, we're following this pretty closely. So that kind of wraps up the points that I wanted to hit, and I wanted to put this back up just to reiterate, here's what I wanted to set out to do, or I should say what Jonathan and I set out to do. But as I just said, Cloud PBX, people are saying it's new. It's really not. Skype for Business has been around for several years, all the way back to LCS, if you think. I mean, that's the natural progression of the product. LCS in early 2000s, OCS in late 2000s, Link 2010, Link 2013, and now Skype for Business, and now Cloud PBX. These aren't new products. This is the natural evolution of the suite. So I hope you have a better understanding of what Cloud PBX is and what it can do. How we can help, what some of the pitfalls might be, what some of the things to think about might be, and I hope you realize now it's not as easy as let me go into my admin portal, assign the license, and turn it on and go back to what I was doing. It's voice, right? And we all know voice is complex. Comparatively, email is easy, right? Comparatively, email is it's non-real time and it's more amenable to change and network latency. Voice is way more complex, and it's one of those features that if it's down, people will let you know about it the instant it's down. So that's, again, where we come in to help and use the framework. So, Jonathan, I don't know if you've been monitoring questions, if there's anything out there, but that concludes what I had to share, unless you've got anything you want to add.
Yeah, Patrick, I did monitor the questions. I've sent answers back to the people, actually to all the group, in terms of what the questions that were asked and the answers that we have at this point in time. One of the other things that I wanted to follow up on in terms of getting back to the poll, like we talked about, the 80% look like they're starting to think about it. And again, I think what we understand, and Patrick, you can probably verify this as well, most of the conversation and most of the deployments that we're doing today, for example, the 4 deployments that I'm doing today that have some cloud PBX component in them, they still have, as Patrick said, some on-premises component associated with it. So it's very, very much, Microsoft's description of it is it's a hybrid deployment. Arrow SI is a perfect example of that, because we have people that are still supported on our Skype for Business on-premise deployment. We have Patrick, for example, who's doing cloud PBX and PSTN conferencing, and we also have I'm probably talking to you today by dialing out through a SIP trunk going out through our Avaya infrastructure. So we're really no different than a lot of other customers and people like yourself that are thinking about taking specific components, looking at either sunsetting them, their end of life or end of use in terms of being financially already paid off, and you're looking to do something else or adapt a new financial model of going from CapEx to OpEx. And so all those different components get pulled together, and ultimately it leads to what we consider to be a structured and iterative approach to supporting your existing infrastructure, as well as adding new components that work specifically for individual persona.
Yeah, and I want to add to that, right? So you mentioned what some of our current customers are doing, what other people, everybody wants to know what everybody else is doing, right? So here's what other people are doing. We all know PBXs are complex. I said that before. We live it. And in some cases, there are users and worker types that aren't amenable to moving to Cloud PBX. I'm thinking call center agents, people who have call center apps that have screen pops and maybe a CRM tool involved, and you don't want to flip that world upside down immediately. So we're going to keep those users there. But some of the low-hanging fruit are the information workers and the mobile workers, and customers are doing that. Just like they're migrating some of the email, they're migrating some of their users to Cloud PBX and interrupting with that stuff on-prem. So it's not necessarily an all-or-nothing strategy. It's just, yeah, as Jonathan said, what's convenient to the user and the worker type. And I'm seeing a lot of that. So, well, I think that's it for the show. Kelly, thank you for setting this up. Jonathan?
Yeah, actually, we have one more question. I just want to make sure that we kind of get it addressed. So, Jonathan, I'm not sure if you want to kind of address this question to the audience.
You mean does Microsoft feel ready to provide Cloud PBX for large enterprises? I would say that Microsoft feels that they're pretty competitive in terms of the features and functionality that are supported in Cloud PBX. I think if you refer back to, once you get a copy of the slides, the slide on the roadmap, you will see where exactly Microsoft feels they are today versus where they believe they have to be in 2017 and 2018 So I would think
it depends on the organization too, right?
Does.
I mean,
a
greenfield startup in Silicon Valley with 100 users, yeah, maybe they don't have the time or the capital to stand up a PBX infrastructure. Boom, it's just like email, turn it on.
Right. Yeah, but for more traditional enterprises, it's probably a process that'll be spread out over the course of the next 2 to 3 years, as the question stated.
Hey, I'll ask a question, Jonathan, since I didn't address it. What do you do about voicemail? What do you do about voicemail, Jonathan?
What do I do about voicemail? I use Exchange.
Cloud PBX.
I use Exchange.
So the point there is Cloud PBX leverages Exchange and Azure for its voicemail functionality. People often forget about voicemail, they don't bring it up, and it's just kind of there in the background. The point here is, yeah, voicemail's there, it's part of Exchange, you get an email.
Yep. And again, to a large enterprise that, is pretty much North America based, whether it be 10,000 or 20,000 users, I would say that there's a significant percentage of the users that could be supported on Cloud PBX and would have absolutely no issues at all in terms of features and functionality. Now, as Patrick mentioned in his description of where your PSTN trunking is coming from, you may migrate the users to the cloud and still continue to support your PSTN trunking from your existing service provider by using CCE or Skype for Business on-premise via your existing PBX or to your service provider. And that's something that's been done over the with some of our customers in the last 90 days or so.
Well, I think I said it a couple of times, but I think we actually have reached the end.
Thank you, Patrick and Jonathan, and thank you all for attending today.